Nigeria, it's no retreat, no surrender in its struggle for improved living conditions of workers. The Nigerian Labour Congress has insisted that the only thing that would stop the planned nationwide strike over economic hardship in the country is the implementation of the agreements reached by both parties. And in the latest letter to the federal government, the NLC dismissed claims by the government officials that it has fulfilled 80% of the October 2nd, 2023 agreement with the organized labor. Well, we have to discuss this matter quickly with GKB before we really end this program, because, you know, when we look at this issue of GKB, it seems like though there's a question of sincerity on the part of the government, on both parties. Let me put it on that aspect. But what's your take about this issue, and how can it be quickly resolved? Because we've had protests not too far away, just some days ago.
Well, the resolution is, of course, if both parties agree on where we are right now. Because the government is saying they've done 80%, Labour is saying they've done less than that. But Labour have not told us the percentage they've done that will warrant them going back to do this. Because in any negotiation, there will be timelines and there will be parameters that are set. So Labour has not been able to tell us what are the timelines set to meet these demands and where government has defaulted. Don't forget that the leadership of NLC has created an impression of being antagonistic to this administration, which may be well and good for whatever they want to achieve. But ultimately, they will lose the most potent weapon in the arsenal by always coming up with these threats whenever things like this happen. Because there must be timelines that either party must meet, and they must have defaulted over time for you to say this. Because when I read the release, I was waiting for them to explain to me that, okay, the October agreement is this. This is the timeline. By December, they ought to have done this. By March, they ought to have done this. This is what they've done. This is not what they have done. And then you don't now use the threat of a strike, essentially, as a tool. Because it's a tool that will soon to no longer be as sharp.
So what should they have adopted?
Two things. Let them keep meeting with the government. And if they have proof that government has not met the timelines, let them do what they do best. Give a warning, then go back to their base and let them know how far this thing has gone. Or else?
You leave status quo.
No, they'll continue.
BK, your thoughts on this?
I was looking, there are indeed some of those agreements that have not been met.
Right.
Let me read some of them. Non-implementation, okay. Review the program of cash transfer and propose the inclusion of low-income earners in the program. Government has not
fully implemented that.
They have reviewed the program. It was Wale Edun that was given the mandate. He has submitted his report. Now, the only thing that Labour has asked for here is include low-income earners. It means that the government will have to spend a lot more. By the time you include low-income earners, who are the people they are talking about? Maybe from grade level 1 to 7. It depends on who they see as a low-income earner. As far as the government is concerned, the conditional cash transfer is not designed for that category of people. It's not even designed for civil servants.
Salary,
It's not designed for civil servants, you know? So they've not met that, and I can understand why. Tax waivers for workers, small businesses, and the general public. I don't know whether government that is struggling with revenue would agree to tax waivers for workers. And you said general public. What do you mean by general public? General public. That one is not even good English to say general public. It's public. Public is public. You know? So who are you talking about? Outstanding wages, salaries for tertiary education workers in all federally owned education institutions to be paid. I know that they started doing that. They paid 4 months out of 8 months. Every time the ASU goes on strike,
Or threatens
very
to go on
long
strike.
a long strike, they don't pay at once. They usually pay like 2 times. That is the standard. I know that one. So I'm confident that they will pay the remaining 4 months. States and private sector to be compelled to give wage awards to workers. You can't compel businesses and you can't compel. I mean, federal government is not sergeant major. You can only appeal to them. Some states are giving it. Oyo is one example, for example. But you can't compare. Look at the word. Labor leaders should choose their words wisely and carefully. You can't use the word compel. The president is not a military ruler, and you want him to compel. Compel means force. How do you do that in a democracy? Provision of funds for MSMEs across the nation. It makes sense. I would want to see the Minister of Agri do something. The Minister of Trade do something quickly about that. Then fertilizer initiative for farmers across the nation. They are addressing that. From the interview that we had with the Minister of Agri last week, they are doing quite some work in that area. So this is the thing. The issue of the cash award. I spoke with a senior public servant from Abuja just before the program, and he said some of them have received 4 months. The thing kicked off in October. Some have received 4 months. Some have not received up to that. What the government needs to straighten out is there should not be selective payment. You shouldn't choose, because labor is talking about that. For example, the TUC have said that they've received up to the end of January. But labor is saying no, that is not. So they are not even in agreement on that, on how many people have been paid. But from what I heard, some category of civil servants have received 4 months.
Right.
Some have not. So government has to look at that to address this demand. Things like the issue of the CNG, you can't roll out CNG buses. So they have to go and produce them. They have to produce them. It's just like you want to buy an aircraft. You don't buy an aircraft off the shelf. You place an order, and they will give you timelines. Just like the warplanes that we bought that time. We knew when Nigeria paid for the Tucanos, and they told us when the first set will come, and then when the second set. In fact, they painted them in different colors. They came at different times. So you don't expect the CNG buses and cars overnight and Marwa to have come just like that. No, it needs time. It needs time to produce them, because we are talking about 100 billion set aside for it. That's a lot of money and a lot of buses. So it's naturally taking some time. Yes, we want government to move quickly on these matters. But for me, just as he said, I don't think that at every point you must use the strike weapon. If you continue to use it, you'll get to a point when it becomes meaningless. People won't take even your strike seriously anymore.
Right.
So, and we don't want labor to be demystified, because labor will outlive Ajero or whoever is there today. But don't damage labor.
Right.
Let labor remain effective in fighting for our people. We appreciate that they are fighting for our people, but some of the methods are not good enough.
So they should be strategized and think about their process.
Don't always be fast. Look at the other. TUC didn't agree to the nationwide protest because it could have been hijacked. What if it was hijacked and people lost their lives? What will you say? So they should be more tactical in pursuing
their demands,
their goals.
Right.
I appreciate them. They are fighting for everyone.
Right.
I will not sit here and say no, that I disagree, that they are not fighting for us. If they get something off the table, it comes my way. Yeah. I benefit from it.
True.
I benefit from it.
Right.
So just like if today they say, okay, Mr. President, do this for us, and he does it for the whole country, I will benefit.
Right.
You cannot take my own benefit away. I will enjoy it too. It's not going to be Ajero alone that will enjoy it. But the method sometimes you have to review your method and ask yourself whether
it is worth it.
It is impossible to meet all these demands.
All right.
That is a fact.
Right, that's where we'll leave it for now for today's episode of Journalist Hangout. Let me thank my guests, my fellow journalists, fellow colleagues with me in the profession. Gani Kayode Balogun, thank you so much for your insights.
Yeah.
And Babajide Kolade Otitoju, thank you so much for your insights on the program as usual. Join us again tomorrow for another episode of it. You can also watch a